Welcome everyone. This is Evren Ozkaya from Supply Chain Wizard, and this is Supply Chain Wizard for Pharma podcast series. Our guest today is Bryan Holmes, VP of Information Technology from Andelyn Biosciences. Bryan, welcome.
Thank you, Evren. Good to be here.
Great. So this is one of my favorite topics. We're going to go deep into your background in IT, information technology, digital transformation. But first, let's get to know you a little bit. Can you tell us about yourself and your background? You're based in Columbus, Ohio. Let's get that started, from a location perspective in the United States.
Thank you. So, work here at Andelyn Biosciences, leading up the digital and technology solutions team here. I've been with Andelyn about 4 years now. We were an organization carved out from Nationwide Children's Hospital. I joined to help us establish our digital ecosystem, really from a greenfield perspective. I've been in life sciences for about 25 years now, starting at Merck in Philadelphia, right out of college from Penn State, and then consulted for a while, consulting at big clients and small alike, and then I was at Boehringer Ingelheim for a couple of different sites, one in Cleveland, Benvenue Labs, and one in Columbus, Ohio, that was later acquired by Hikma. And then I worked for Hikma for several years before joining Andelyn in 2020.
So, a couple of really big companies, and then now into relatively small company, right? Kind of you can even say it's almost like a new type of company in the pharma world. Right? Can you maybe tell us a little bit about the Andelyn in general? What do you do? What type of products you produce?
Yeah. So it really became an interesting opportunity for me, both personally and professionally. So in January of 2020, it was announced that Nationwide Children's was creating this entity that was going to be basically built from the ground up in Columbus, Ohio, which was my backyard. And the focus of it was gene therapy and a CDMO, so contract development and manufacturing organization. The idea behind it was really started in the roots in NCH, or Nationwide Children's Hospital, and in which gene therapy research had taken place, and then had to grow into a GMP space in order to do the manufacturing of these therapies. It's actually the name of Andelyn comes from two of the first patients to receive gene therapy treatments at NCH, from Andrew and Evelyn. Put the names together and you have Andelyn. So it was a really great story about a company, grassroots build out in Columbus, Ohio, and really at the forefront of medical technology.
Yeah, so I'm sure everybody at least somehow heard about cell and gene therapy, but it's not really clear to most of us, maybe, so you can educate us on that. So what is different from a traditional pharmaceutical drug development and manufacturing, like the pills that we know? Most of the drugs we take are pills, like oral solid dose, the way we call it. But then cell and gene therapy sounds a lot more personal, right?
Yeah.
What is unique about it?
It really is on the brink of personalized medicine, in the sense that from a gene therapy, the indications go from rare to ultra rare diseases. We have come across families where patients are one of one. So one person globally that has been diagnosed with either one genetic or a combination of genetic disorders, that we're then looking at helping our clients and ultimately that patient come up with that solution. There's patients that could be 30, really small population size when you're thinking of things like they're having blood pressure or other things, or even oncology products now where it's a lot of oral, that it's a lot of folks are getting the same treatments, same medicine across the board, whereas our approach is in gene therapy is to either help enhance a gene that may be malformed at birth, or to replace a missing gene in an individual. So it becomes really targeted to a specific patient population, and getting it through to them.
Yeah, I guess this seems to be like the global trend of personalization, right? Everything. And what about medicine? Of course, this is the most important thing, your own health, and you're a unique individual. And if companies like Andelyn can develop drugs that can personally work for you, that's even better. And seems like, I did a little research. According to numbers around, 2024, the market for cell and gene therapy is around $5 billion in manufacturing market, and it's a pretty high growth projection, expected to grow all the way to 22, $23 billion in 10 years from now in 2034. So like, 25+% year over year growth. So you're in a, up and coming market, emerging, growing fast. So I guess the agility and the speed is kind of necessary part of your job, right? And you're in the forefront, you're steering wheel of the technology side of this company. So, that's where I want to dive next, your role. So what do you do? What is a day-to-day of a CIO or a VP of IT look like in a cell and gene therapy company?
Yeah, it becomes really interesting. And when you think about where we are in general from a technology base in the world from where we were, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, what's accessible to us now to be able to run a company and to set the strategy is way different than it was 25 years ago. So when I first started my career, deploying a laboratory information management system globally, like the challenges in doing things there was no cloud there, there was no iPhones, there was no on demand, I need anything at any given time. There was no chat GPT. So now when we look at it from a strategic perspective on the day-to-day aspect, like what is it that we should be looking at? What is it, from both what is a core differentiator from us from a technology base that we should focus on that can help us in both our business goals, which ultimately aligns to patient outcomes and patient goals, but looking at it from how do we, reduce the time in the development life cycle? How do we reduce the time in the manufacturing? How do we reduce deviations? How do we have better time to closure and deviations and investigations? What are all the things that could hamper a life cycle in the overall product life cycle that as a CDMO that we have control over? And then how do we add those extra benefits to our customers? So as we started out, 4 years ago when I joined, we came up with really 3 guiding principles that still remain to this day. And use the acronym DSX of data as an asset, security, designing with security in mind, and then the X is for experience, and thinking about both internal experience for our customers or for our employees, as well as our external experience from our customers. So that total experience concept of using data as an asset, doing it securely, and how this can transform the experience of working with a CDMO are 3 of the things that I look at on a day-to-day basis. And then the other aspect is being part of a small company, right? We're only, say, 225 employees right now, growing this year and continuing to grow in different areas. How do we set things from a technology base that we don't have to double our staff to be able to double our outputs? So what are things where we're able to utilize different process improvements, and then things that are even just like more back office process improvements as opposed to purely on the shop floor. So tend to look at a lot of things along those areas, and then also responsible for cybersecurity, responsible for infrastructure, responsible for data and applications. So every given day comes with a different flavor, and that's what I love about the job so much.
Okay, so you're saying that like it's slightly different than being in a large company in the IT versus in a much smaller company IT, that you're more end-to-end responsibilities.
Yeah, I think even if you're a CIO in a larger company, you have end-to-end responsibility. You tend to have a lot more layers of management and employees. Even in my previous company, I had 65 or 70 employees on my team, and plus a number of contractors and consultants. Whereas here I have 8 with some contractors and consultants. So it's the high touch is a lot more there. You have to be more involved in things, building out and managing a small team, and the things that we take for granted for some of the processes that have been in place in larger companies, that you start to see, we always used to do it this way. Well, no, we don't have that. We have to build it. Now we build it the same way. And that's sort of kind of the approach we've always taken, is that a lot of things that we've done in larger companies were built based 25 years ago, 20 years ago. or designed in that mentality. How do we design things with today's technology and today's process and thought process in mind, as opposed to doing it the way we did it 25 years ago? Now, there's still defaults to best practices and other things, but it's become a really eye-opening bit and a challenge. And there's definitely parts where we miss some of the formality and things and foundational items that existed in other companies. But it's also something that is you get much more hands-on and in touch with it when you're managing the entire ecosystem at a single level deep, or 2 levels deep.
Yeah. No, that must be exciting. So you were also, thank you for doing that last year, the year before last, 2023. You were a keynote speaker in our conference, in the Digital Supply Chain Summit at Rutgers Business School, and you talked about some interesting concept that is called the digital CDMO. And I saw the TM sign on it, like it's a trademark. You trademarked this term for Andelyn. Tell us more about what do you mean, digital CDMO and why?
Yeah, no. So from a digital CDMO perspective, the concept is around that DSX philosophy. So as we start to think about experience, we think about data, we think about security, we think about what it is that we're doing as a business. How do we interact with our clients? What is it that we're trying to do? What is it that they're trying to do? What are the typical friction points that exist between a CDMO and one of their clients? So we're trying to break down all those barriers through technology. So as we go through, and building out our stack, right, and building out our rich data history. So one of the things that we had from being part of Nationwide Children's Hospital, we had 17 years of history or so before become our own entity. So there's a lot of data that we have access to, that our scientists can have access to, that really digitizing that, and I've come up with a new term called datatizing it. So converting like paper records into data that can be read and utilized in our overall analyses is something that's an advantage to us versus other CDMOs, because they don't have that there. And so when it comes to a digital first mindset, is like, how do we think about what that experience is like to interact with us? How do we make it where our data that we know is we're basically a custodian of that data for our customer, that they can also interact with that data, that they can interact with it easily. Now, it's not as easy as just, hey, let's build an app and then everything's there. There's every single layer of making sure, again, the infrastructure is in place, that the security is in place, that our data governance processes are in place, that we then bring that data together and are able to expose it to a customer and make sure that they're able to consume that data in a way that's good for them, but not in a way that's impacting or that they don't get a different customer's data, because that's bad, right? So so it's really building out towards that concept of really being that a company to interact with in a digital first mindset, without the traditional barriers that you have with shipping paper records or FedExing paper documents to a customer in the end. So how we're going through that is really as we're building it out. So it really is that concept.
Yeah. So, I mean, congratulations on being one of the leaders in this category of like digital leaders in the industry. As we know, the standard traditional way of working as a CDMO business is you get a purchase order for your customer, and then you deliver and send the shipment notice. And there's like 3 months in between, and that's how it goes. Sometimes fax machines are involved, and emails are actually an upgrade still to this day. Yeah. So you have imagined that digital CDMO concept, but how far away are you? Like, let's say from 0%, which is the traditional pharma CDMO, to 100% digital. What percent of the way you're already there, and what does 100% look like?
That's a great question, right? So I think the 100% is always going to be a moving target, right? I think that probably by the time I wake up tomorrow morning, there's going to be a different technology or a different trend that's already started that I'll have to look at. So I'm not sure 100% is ever really achievable. But when I think about sort of the key pillars of our business processes that are primarily digital versus paper-based or non-digital, I would say we are probably at the 80-ish% on digital first business process now. By the end of, let's say, next year, I'll go 97.5% or 95%, right? That I think there'll still be some things that we'll have to, look through. One of the challenges that we always face is, especially in the CDMO, is the cost to digitize something and the complexity of digitizing it. Does that override the value of doing it? So there could be some things that are done in tandem, but to me, the end goal then to still be making sure that data, if we have a strategy to make sure that data is available digitally, but not like a digitally native process, if that makes sense. So I would say we're closer to the end game there than we are to the start of it. And then from the different aspects of bringing all that data together, I would say probably similarly around 70 or so percent of the way there of having that data centralized into our key areas that we're then able to start building different applications on it for. And so that's when we can really, hang the digital CDMO side out front is when we start having SKUs that our customers are able to order from us in a digital, from a digital solution as opposed to just being a physical product.
I see. So one objection that I always hear in the CDMO and to the customer relationship of data sharing is that CDMOs, they don't like to share. They don't prefer sharing data. Like that's the traditional stance that like, I am not sure if I'm comfortable sharing that data with my customer. So that's the original, like the standard stance, and which I think with you kind of people and the companies is changing. What do you think is happening that is making people more comfortable, or ask the other way around? What makes people so conservative in sharing data with their customers as a CDMO? Because you're a contracted organization to produce somebody else's product, but then when it comes to sharing data, you're not willing to share that much. So how can we, classify this problem and solve for it?
Yeah, no, I think the last word you used there, like the classify, I think is something that we need to get better at. And just even think of some of the news that came out earlier this week with DeepSeek, right? So now there's a new platform out there, AI, that can do it at 1/100th of the cost of OpenAI. All the data you're giving up to the world, right? So when we were talking last night at a cybersecurity event about it, and the discussion was that basically in the user license agreement, you're saying that it can go to the People's Republic of China and they can do keystroke logging, they can do anything else with the data that's going there. So great advancement in the technology space, but you're foregoing your access to all of your data. So that gives that becomes very black and white. Like that becomes a very big concern. Now, could you use that for other things where you're not using sensitive data? Perhaps. Is it something where, are you sure that you're not using sensitive data? Probably not, because you don't have your data classified and labeled. And so again, when we think about all the different areas of how to go through and when you build out these models and the different things, like how do you have, again, the right guiding principles in place and the right approach to be able to say that this is labeled, that you can you have the evidence base for it, and you can show where this data is coming from and how it's being used, and so that what consumption models does it go into? So if you have client A and client B, and you say client A is informing client B's decision, that could be a conflict of interest. But if client A, client B, client C are all anonymized and informing an Andelyn decision on processes on how we operate, is that clear? Could be. It might not, right? So it's definitely a gray area. That's I think industry will evolve more as we get some more of the understanding of where the consumption of that data lies.
Okay, so but the trend is definitely on sharing more and more transparency. That's clear. And for CDMOs who don't want to share, and they're losing something of a competitive advantage. I've been in studies where brand owners clearly wanted that data, and what they got was a partial data on PDF printout, sent over email. They're willing to pay for it in some cases, not everyone, of course, because valuable data, like you said, is an asset. It's valuable. So very interesting. I mean, we can talk all day long on the digital CDMO, which I think is a like in the future it will be the standard. but now it's a rare thing. And kudos to you again and Andelyn team in
Thank you.
leading the charge there. So let's switch gears to your role as the head of IT or the traditional CIO, where let's say I'm going to take approaches from a technology vendor perspective because I am representing one. So when new technologies emerge and you want to go to your, let's say, potential customers, let's say in this case, a manufacturing company, there are 2, 3 major, personas to approach. One is the operation. Let's say you're approaching the people who are doing day-to-day manufacturing operations. They are clearly the top users of technology to make shop floor more efficient. But then there is the overall IT governance, and the head of it is the CIO. Typical approach is IT team is kind of the naysayer to any potential new idea coming in, like kind of the gatekeepers. If IT doesn't say yes, that technology will not be adopted. So this is like more common in the industry than I would like to see. And then the others are like more decentralized, like everybody picks their own, but then there's a risk that everybody's doing their own thing. There's no global harmonization, standardization. So first of all, what do you think the role of IT and the CIO should be in the digital world? How would you best characterize it? Maybe giving some examples from your experience.
Yeah, no, it's interesting how you put it, because there are so many different sort of sides of the spectrum that IT can fall on, right? Is IT an order taker? And we want this, put it in and go do it. Is IT a business partner? Is IT a strategic thought leader in the company? Is kind of in that spectrum there, like where does the group fit? And I think a lot of it depends on a number of things. Like one is what kind of IT organization you have. Another is like what capabilities you have in the business and what level of open-mindedness folks have there. For me, like I'd say I hope that my company would agree for more of the strategic partner side of it, and then the thought leaders, and also helping bring solutions to the business. We're not in the business of saying no, but it does have to fit within our guardrails, right? Everything we bring in, we'll look at from a security perspective. Does it fit? We look at it from a data perspective. Does this ultimately fit into the strategy where we're going? Is there a similar solution that we already have in that's licensed? Do we have to maintain that? We have our fiduciary responsibilities, right? And making sure that it aligns with where we're going. Is it fit for purpose for the size of the company we are? Like that. The challenge, again, of being part of a smaller company is we have appetites of those from larger companies, including myself at times, right? That we've seen, but what a good enterprise architecture looks like, and like I want that, and so it's something that it may not always fit. So you have to be a little bit more creative at times with it. And one of the hardest things I think in any of these spaces is we're all used to the ability to get information at our fingertips, download an app, and I think the challenge still exists between people splitting their mind from what their personal life is like to what their professional life is like, and understanding that an app that they use at home that they have no say in and no configuration in on my banking app, but they come and get an app at work, but they want to have all the say in how it's done. Don't realize that that's a 6-month time difference and a large X cost difference, right? So I think blending that is important, and getting the right. Been using the term digital ninjas, both for my team and then throughout the organization, building up capabilities across, because the only way it's going to be successful is with that partnership.
Okay, so there was a couple of very interesting talks. Like one of them I picked up on is, like business users, like in the digitalization journey, they want their way. But then in the personal life, they're used to just downloading a standard app and using it like everybody else. So where do you think the answer is? Like, are you more like a software as a service off the shelf guy, or are you more like a custom solution built for me guy?
I'm a software as a service off the shelf guy, right? That I think and again, I mean, it's part of a small team, 100%, right? And I think I might have told you this before, but like I reinvent myself every 4 or 5, 6 years as jobs change or role changes. So in 2 years, I might be like, hey, build a custom 100%. But it's situational. It's really depending on where you're at. But for where we are and what we're trying to do, there's companies such as yourself that spend a lot of time developing what is a best practice in a process and in an area. Like why would we come in and say the way we do it is so different and so much better? Let's adopt the
Yeah.
software to try and meet what we do, and then in reality, that becomes something that the friction builds there. Even if we change it, the friction then builds because every time the system upgrades, is it going to work? Does something else change? Does the reporting then bring in the same nomenclature? Things here. Now, a challenge is because we have multiple solutions across the board, nomenclature across isn't aligned. We need a whole biotech pharma single nomenclature approach. I think that would solve a lot of problems from those areas. But again, bringing in then I think the skills that are evolving a lot more in the digital transformation landscape is that transformation, is that organizational change management, is the aspect of understanding how to coach the business along and seeing what the changes are and why it's okay. And the industry we're in is such a slower to move industry. So that becomes a whole different set of discussions.
Yeah, no, I know I might have mentioned this in previous episodes as well, but there's this joke that I saw on one of the online videos about pharmaceutical industry, and I think the speaker was from AWS, and he was saying like if you invent a time machine and go to 1950s and 60s and abduct a pharmaceutical operator, bring it today, put it into a pharma plant, he would know exactly what to do. Same machinery, same SOPs on paper. So
Funny,
not
yeah.
much change, not much change. That's funny, but also real. Like a lot of the processes are still the same. The drugs that are made 100 years ago, they're still being made the same way, but it's changing. The apps on the floor is changing. The connectedness is changing. Obviously, there's internet now. And I tell our customers that, look, imagine you're in 1990s and nobody has any computers or laptops personally. Like it's just, but now everybody has their own laptop and also an iPhone 16. The latest version, right? In the pharma industry, we are kind of in the same like 90s, kind of like with the technology. Like there's nothing, but that 10, 20 years from now, there's not going to be any plant without these tools. So it's your move, whether you do it now and adapt and early, gain the early advantages of doing that, or wait and see, and then see you are forced to do this and possibly forced out of the market. So this is the reality that everybody started seeing, but taking action is a whole different game versus seeing and acknowledging, right? So changing gears to, of course, if I find an IT leader, I should ask about AI. You already mentioned about DeepSeek in like the whole $1 trillion market wipeout of value with just one simple product launch. The change of AI is mind-boggling, right? It's so like ChatGPT is something that everybody knows. It's only like 2 years and 3 months old, but all of our lives have changed since the launch of this technology. So how do you put AI into pharma? What do you think are the biggest opportunities and low-hanging fruit? And is there a little too much hype going on? And what is your warning about that to the actual users thinking about using AI?
Yeah, we're definitely in a hype cycle of it, right? I think it's probably better than a lot of people think and not as great as some others think, right? So it's going to be somewhere in between of where we land on this. I think like one of the things that I love about AI and just where things have come in the last couple of years is, as I mentioned, 5 or 10 years ago, we were technology constrained. So there was things that we wouldn't be able to do based on whether server horsepower or data availability or just conceptually not able to do. Whereas today, that's all there. Like there's very little that we could sit there and say, technically that's not possible. And that's kind of an amazing place to be. So now what I find is that it's going back to our sort of our youth of like where our most creative ideas came from, right? So it's, there was something, and I forget what study it was, but a lot of times the level of creativity of individuals sort of weans off when you get into your 20s because you've been told no so many times throughout your life. And so like 16, like, that's not possible. Like, no, you're not going to be an NFL player. No, you're not going to do that. You're not going to be president. You're not going to be low. And then you're like, oh, what if we did this? What if we created a flying car? You're not going to create a flying car. Then you have people like Elon Musk are like, I'm still going to create a flying car. I don't care. Right. And so there's certain people who still kind of keep going on that creative area. Whereas I think now, like, how do we get that back out of us, right? Because I think of some of the things that you look at each part of the life cycle and each part of the business. Where can you inject AI to be an aid? So if it's something like just managing a project, managing meetings, managing action items. Okay, well, the note taking tools are fantastic now. How do you get those and just say, okay, automatically create me action items, send it in there, and then follow through. So it's taking out tasks that are inhibiting you from doing other work. So that becomes a process efficiency. Now you take that into strategic processes that look at it from a manufacturing perspective. How do you look at your process verification? How do you look at your critical process parameters? You look at these, and now that data is easily available to you where it wasn't before. Now you're able to infer and make on the fly recommendations. Well, ultimately, you're going to have a human in the loop right now to make changes before you would all go through other things. Big one I look at is like a complex process like maybe generating an APR. So doing that from a number of different data sources across the area, and then also having to interpret that data. Well, if you are able to collectively bring that data together, have the right prompts in place, you could generate some context around that data based on what's there and get you 80% of the way and have the person finish that. So we have some others in that area that we're working on that I'll say are probably a little bit more proprietary that I won't share, but really exciting aspects. You kind of think along those lines of what it's able to do.
Yeah, so you're basically going up in the complexity ladder and having AI help you with more complex tasks like annual product reviews, which normally takes weeks and lots of data collection. Now it's helping you do things a lot faster, or at least it has the capability to do that. And then you're working towards getting those higher level value from the AI. The funny thing that you said about you're being told no for so many times and you stop, wanting it or exploring it. So it just reminded me that the kind of the fixed quality mindset, the way I call it. I mean, the quality teams, and they're actually doing a very important job. Like these drugs that we inject or put in our body should be absolutely safe, right? There are rules for reasons for some people died for it, and there is a rule updated, so we need to comply with that. So quality compliance is so important, so critical. But it reminds me that a lot of us for decades have heard about no from the quality team. Nope, we can't do that. Nope, that requires validation. No, you can't touch the equipment. No, we cannot update that. It became a little bit of a self-limiting behavior. I think you're highlighting something very important, that if the quality team or IT teams or both, they are more into nope, we are open-minded. We are going to go into this new age. We are going to test AI. We are going to test robotic process automation, new technologies, and then find out what works for us. Then it's going to create a step change in performance and create better companies, better drugs, better industry, and hopefully save some cost as well. I was just looking at the market sizes that you just posted today on LinkedIn. The top 10 pharma markets in the world. Obviously, United States is the best and the most biggest, and also the fastest growing. The next largest 9 markets is not adding up to a US size. So we have also a pretty big cost problem in this country, right? We need to also save costs and make more efficient drugs. That is also, maybe one area of AI and technology can help.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I think one of the things that, it's going to take probably a little bit for quality organizations to get comfortable with this, right? That as you kind of joke that they are and have been in the business of saying no, but rightfully so. They're the last guard between a product going out and being either ingested or injected into a patient, that they have a serious job to protect. Now, I think one of the things that you see the FDA moving much more towards is this risk-based approach. And I think it's going to take a while for the quality organizations to fully buy into what that means and truly understanding where the risk is. And AI, it's going to make it even more complex. Like, where is the risk of this? Is this is this going to impact product quality? No. Is it going to impact patient safety? No. Is it going to where is that risk going to occur? And that's where I go back to our guiding principles around it is having evidence-based AI. So we could clearly see the trail of where this data has come from, and really try to reduce those risks up front. So if, again, thinking with like a quality mindset, and similar like designing with security in mind, how do we design with quality in mind, and understand what they would be looking for and asking, helping answer that, and then what I was talking with some of our folks in our quality team yesterday is that the advantage of having more of this data available, accessible to them, is it changes their workload from 70% tactical, 30% strategic, to being more of a 70% strategic to 30% tactical on the quality leadership side, and quality on the board, being able to really help advise as opposed to be in that business of saying no. So I think there's sort of the two aspects of the digital transformation that help that and really help elevate quality, and still help them do their job better.
Okay. No, this is very, very good conversation. I wish we can stay for a few more hours and talk about it. But I wanna move on to maybe wrap up with any fun stories or things from your career that you remember on like how difficult it is to adapt to new technologies or change management. Everybody has their own stories about like why it is like taking this long or people are against it. So anything that comes to mind, anything that you want to share?
Yeah, there was a couple of stories, right? So I think back to one of my very first projects, and a lot of this, it becomes foundational to you, right? Is you go and then work on something for however long that sticks with you and some of your learning. So it was actually a project at Merck. It was a global LIMS rollout, and there's two different ones there that I think helped in building one I always use as a great example from things, and another one was a different kind of great example that we were in one of the sites in New Jersey, and they were not happy with the rollout of the solution. And I was up there at the go live. I was a year and a half or 2 years out of college, and go up, and we're there in more northern New Jersey, and I'm a Jersey guy, so I can say this as a review. And we get called into a meeting, and there's like, I don't know, 16, 18 people in there that were really not happy with the rollout and what was happening, and I'm sitting there getting peppered with questions like there's nobody to call in for help, right? So I had to stand up there and take the questions. I laugh about it because one of the things was that the report that they were complaining about used to be half a page, and now it was a full page. So I think it was like that's nonsense, right? That it's a full page. Well, they had to fold it in half and then put it in staple into like their batch record or whatever. Well, you do that 70 times. Now the page, so again, how to take that now, thinking back, okay, from really understanding the experience and the use of it, where they're coming from. So it was just a funny Jersey story that I want to throw out there. And then the other one that I loved was same project. Had been working with a colleague in the Italy site, and we were going through trying to solve complex calculations, dual active product, multi-time point, trying to figure out how to put this in LIMS without like customizing. It goes back to building it in the system as it exists there without trying to write code to do this. We're in sort of the building there with whiteboards everywhere, drawing things out. We finally got it. Now, I didn't speak Italian. He didn't really speak that good English. But we were able to work it out through common language and code. And I love that story because several years later, we still remain in contact. We're friends on Facebook, and then we ended up sharing a birthday. We shared a birthday. We never knew that because we never communicated about it. But I look back, like we were sitting there in this room for days, and like it was like a week and a half, like trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
We finally got to figure it out, and then later on, we figured out that we're both have the same birthday. So it's just kind of the cool things are like just working with different cultures, different people, different technologies, understanding where they're coming from, and really trying to bring that all together.
Yeah, I mean, I think the transformation is hard, and in the conferences we have, we don't only talk about the change of like the implementation of technology and the impact and the value and challenges, but we also talk about change management and how difficult it is, because it's cultural, right? Like you need to be open to it. You need to embrace other people's perspectives. If you're a population of 2 users, you're going to have differences in opinion. You're not going to agree on everything. If you're a population of 1,000 users in a company, imagine how difficult it's going to be to agree on one set of requirements. So it's always going to be challenging, but I think embracing it, listening to the other side, I mean, as simple as like, yeah, I want half a page so I can fold it. There's a use case for it. So, understanding that so that you don't upset the users. If it's something that you can deliver, you can deliver. If not, then you tell your side of the story, and then maybe the other side would compromise and understand. So it's a one big convoluted change management, technology adoption, and improvement, which is why I think most of these studies that are cited say that like 80% 70% of transformations fail. I think now it became a rule of thumb, but I think that's going to change. That's going to improve as the adoption of technology becomes day to day. I mean, if you're adopting everything like digitally on your mobile phone, you have 100 apps, one app for everything, maybe 1,000 now. Why would you not want to do the same thing in your professional work, right? Why would you have only Microsoft Outlook as email, Excel, and PowerPoint, and a bunch of other productivity tools, and nothing else in terms of like your tools? So I think the world is moving in that direction, and then leaders like you will help accelerate it.
Yeah, and I think that you have to think of it with the workforce as well. Folks coming into the workforce now, they're going to demand it. There's not going to be an option of you come here and tell them to write something on paper. I mean, these kids haven't even learned cursive, right? So that they're going to come in like, wait, I got to write this? See ya. And they'll go somewhere else, and they'll go to a different industry. And so we can't afford that brain drain from our industry. The folks that will be looking to go elsewhere. So it's the writing's on the wall for and it has to happen. And I think that number of the digital transformations that fail, we'll see that number come down a lot in size because it's going to be a mandate.
Yeah. So I think one reason that the number is that high or could be that high is because like most of these IT projects or digital projects have been historically massive projects, like big ERP implementation or big MES implementation, and like 2-year, 3-year program. It loses steam. It changed so much, in leadership and priorities and scope. People get tired of it. Like I think that's like what is draining this and what's resulting in that high failure rate. But as you create more like bite-sized apps and modules and things that can take a couple of days to stand up and use, then why would you fail, right? If it's just taking 1 hour to train someone on it, a couple of days to put it up and running, why? Like there's limited chance of failure. Of course, IT can always say no from the beginning, or the pilot may never scale. McKinsey called this pilot purgatory. Lots of pilots, but nothing at scale. That's a real risk. But I think as things get faster, simpler, more scalable in the cloud, then we are increasing the adoption rate. And also, we need to recognize that there is no one solution for everything. You need to adopt, different things for different use cases, and those solutions need to work together. It cannot be in silos. Then you built a digital silo land rather than a full uniformed technology. But Bryan, this has been a great discussion. Any last words or recommendations to leaders in the pharma market who may be thinking about 2025 is the year for change and to start that digital transformation? What would you say or recommend?
No, I loved your last point there about starting small, like finding what those manageable chunks are that you're able to get in, looking at the total vision. You have to see I think the missing bit is how that fits into the entire program. So I think talking to folks like yourself who are experts in those areas in that domain that can help bring forward that vision to look at the components that can come together to make the recommendations on where to start. I think that's something that's critical. I think it's also again bringing the business leaders to the table to understand that it's not a fear of AI, those things, but like make sure people are aware of what the capabilities are and how your company could start benefiting from it and where, and how to do it in a cost advantageous manner. So I think there's a lot of fun things on the horizon this year.
Yeah. No, great. I mean, it's hard to believe that we are already a quarter century in since the millennia, 2025. But if it's not this year, when are we going to start? Thank you very much for a candid and warm conversation. I really enjoyed it. Hopefully, our audience will enjoy too. And looking forward to connecting again in the future.
All right. Thank you as well. Appreciate it.